2016, Cargill, Venezuela celebrates its 30th anniversary. Congratulations, you guys. Really bang-up job. And then finally, 2017, Cargill and BioAgro worked together to obtain an innovative variety of tropical wheat named Caciquiade and establish the first crop designed to improve and increase the local production in the country. That's what they really need there is increased crop yields.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the big problem they're having.
Again,
I think we
with
found
magic.
out on our Venezuela episode.
Right.
Not enough crop yields.
Yeah. Well, because they have to keep up with all the warehouse burnings by the middle class.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
Well, yeah.
And then for the last thing for this section, the other global operations. So after the government of India, they are the second largest buyer of food grain in India.
Damn.
And that's cool. I like that. And I'm pretty sure they like just rolled in there like fairly recently. It wasn't like they started in like 1950 or something like that.
Right.
I think they like went in like kind of recently. Anyway, so now we move on to the bad shit that they've done section. Number 1, human rights abuses. So there might be some like weird things in this section because I kind of wrote it right before I left.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so in 2005, the International Labor Rights Fund helped 6 ex-workers sue...
6 ex-workers, not 6 sex workers.
Yes. Right.
They're not sex workers and they're perfectly in good health.
Yeah.
We can assume.
Helped them sue Cargill, Archer Daniels Midland, and Nestle, charging them with using child slaves on cocoa plantations in Ivory Coast, including physically abusing them.
Okay, so maybe they're a little sick and they might have been sex workers.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
So the suit was actually dismissed at first by some asshole judge.
Right.
And again, this was in 2005 that they did this.
The judge just really liked that Leslie Salt.
Yeah. That's probably what it was. But in October 2018, the suit was reinstated. So just 6 short months ago, a judge said, no, actually, you should be allowed to be sued for child slavery. That's not good. That's
Like,
not a good thing. Oh, that reminds me. A judge ruled today that the Jeffrey Epstein ruling was against the law and called for the DOJ to reopen the investigation against him. So that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Good news. Anyway, so Cargill played the victim in its response to this. They said, "We will not let these legal proceedings deter us from working actively every day to protect human rights with an unwavering commitment to treating people with dignity and respect in the workplace and the communities where we do business."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A reminder again that they are the largest business in Venezuela.
Yeah.
The place that supposedly has is rife with human rights abuses.
Yeah.
So,
like,
I mean, I guess they are fighting that, probably. I'm sure they're funding the opposition there.
Or maybe they're just like competing with the other human rights abuses for a larger market share of human rights abuses.
Doing
right. So they're fighting
M&A of human rights abuses.
They're fighting human rights abuses with their own, and they're trying to do better at it.
Cargill Human Rights Abuse Division.
right. Cargill Soul Crushing Department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're expanding our child slavery department to Ivory Coast.
right. Through mergers and acquisitions, we are buying up traditional child slavery outfits and replacing them with our
we're
more
searching
streamlined
for child slavery entrepreneurs in countries with markets that we are not currently operating in.
Exactly.
Trying to expand our business.
Right. These small child slavers now have to be impoverished contractees of large child slavers. Payday loans for traditional child slavers. Yeah.
So Nestle also had a response to this. Just nasty.
Oh yeah, Nestle is
nasty shit.
Like a bigger Satan than most.
Oh yeah,
companies.
they're horrible.
They're motherfucking awful.
So they said, regrettably, in bringing such lawsuits, the plaintiffs' class action lawyers are targeting the very organizations trying to fight forced labor.
Right. Once again, with more effective forced labor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. I've had a bunch of jobs, and in none of them did we ever have child slaves. And I have to say, I'm sure that I would have known about that, and probably would have done more than they did to to stop that. I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that
Liam Neeson
statement that they made. God, it's just fucking horrible. Targeting the very organizations trying to fight forced labor. I'm pretty sure this
is Nestle. Nestle is the company that was like, people don't have a right to water.
Yes.
That's the company that said that.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure.
Wait, what?
I'll get to
Water?
Cargill in a second, but I'm pretty sure that Nestle has had problems with child slavery elsewhere as well.
I guarantee it. I fucking
the idea that
it.
they are trying to fight forced labor is just absolutely insane.
Yeah. It's
just the most cynical,
yeah,
like overt lying that you can do.
Like, because they know they can just lie.
Yeah,
they have that power.
Yeah, really sucks.
Yeah,
it sucks that like,
and then you have morons going around.
Like nothing bothers me more than like some shitlib person saying like lying is bad.
Right.
Like, no, lying can be great if you're doing it in the service of something good.
Yeah.
Deontological ethics are shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't know. So, so speaking of targeting the very organizations trying to fight forced labor, in the mid-2000s and earlier, Cargill was buying a lot of cotton from Uzbekistan, and their cotton industry is known to use slavery and child labor. They even stated openly they were aware of the problem and had no plans to stop.
Yeah.
But they did quietly stop buying it. So they said they weren't going to, and then they were like, well, I guess we probably should in case someone brings it up again.
Yeah, and like Uzbekistan does not have a great record as a state, as a country.
I don't know anything about them except that's where Borat is from.
Kazakhstan.
My wife.
Kazakhstan.
Borat.
I know.
Yeah. Uzbekistan.
No. Kazakhstan.
Isn't Kazakhstan in Uzbekistan? Just fucking with you, dude.
I know. I'm just like, it's just that like Central Asia is an area where
my wife.
People just don't know shit about that area.
Classic
so
Uzbekistan.
Like, yeah, but back in that same era, the Uzbek president Islam Karimov was known to like boil people alive for offending him. So like, not only yeah, I'm not even fucking with you. So like, that whole area, it's like, oh,
you
Cargill,
couldn't see it, but I just like froze.
Yeah, he could not even move. He was freezing and dying inside.
Wow.
Yeah. So while Cargill was buying a lot of Uzbek cotton in an industry known for child labor and slavery and stuff, the president of that country, who of course was profiting from all the industry and everything because he's just a fucking dictator,
boiling people's skin off.
Basically, yeah.
That's my.
So they were like journalists who would like turn up dead with weird like discolorations on the outside of their body, and people who would autopsy them would be like, so news for you guys, like, you know, human rights investigators and stuff, like, this is these are markings and stuff that are consistent with being boiled alive, and that's what's happening. Yeah.
I'm struggling to think of a more crazily brutal way of killing people in recent years than that.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And apparently later,
I would rather be decapitated.
Oh yeah,
easily.
Decapitation is simple and totally humane.
Even like the Isa style, like sawing my head off. Right. I would rather that.
Right, just
than
fucking take me
alive.
out. It would be quick. It'd be quick. You'd bleed out, or you'd go into shock, or you would lose nerves.
And people would watch me die, which would be cool.
Right, exactly.
You know, everybody loves watching someone get their head sawn
exactly.
off.
You'd be like, you get to see the lights go out on one side of my face versus the
normal.
other. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh shit, I lost control of my jaw, and now my eyes are just kind of fluttering and doing weird shit. Whereas when you're being boiled alive, it takes a while.
Yeah. I mean, especially if they get through your jugular, like, you're gone in like a minute.
Yeah, you're just like, and you're like, well, this sucks, and it's painful, but it's like,
it's going to hurt for like 45 more seconds.
Exactly. And if it goes through your spine, you're just out, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas like, also, apparently after he got kind of like sussed out for boiling people alive, who pissed him off. Journalists, political rivals, whatever. Then he was like, people are figuring this out. Duh, dude. Jesus Christ. Like, then he started freezing them to death instead.
That's much nicer.
Oh yeah, I'd be like, oh, this is shitty, and like you probably start bleeding through your skin because that's what happens. But like,
see, activism works.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god, man,
yeah,
that's
so that
fucking
guy was
crazy,
a
dude.
Crazy motherfucker.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Were all these guys? What was his name? Ramzan Kadyrov.
Islam Karimov. Yeah,
Why do these guys all have the same shitty sounding name?
because they're from Central Asia.
Anyway, my wife,
my victim.
Damn.
Yeah.
So their last human rights abuse. I wish
The last one ever.
Yes, the last one ever. No, it's just the last one because it was in 2017.
Yep.
I wish I had more time to read about this. I have a link that I'll include. Well, I've already included in the show notes from socialistaction.org, which is cool. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know who they are. So maybe they're tankies. Who knows?
They could be anything.
But anyway, Dayton, Virginia, poultry plant workers. I said charge them, but that makes it sound like it's a legal thing. But basically,
right.
like they accused them in 2017 of poor treatment,
Right.
and firing workers trying to unionize.
Right.
So like basically, the one line that I read that was actually like explanatory to me was one worker like injured herself, and they basically like barely gave her any medical treatment, and she was supposed to have been moved to a different part of the processing line to cope with the injury, which is normal practice. But she was wearing a union shirt at work, which kind of not really smart.
Right. It's like it wasn't smart. Maybe she was trying to show like boldness and solidarity or something.
Yeah.
But
well, the workers did later try to show solidarity with her by wearing union shirts as well.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they fired her. So
motherfuckers, man.
Yeah. So really glad we live in a right to work state. Well, I live in a
right to work
state.
and obviously free speech.
That stuff is cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, you got to be free to do blackface in your yearbook.
Yeah.
Very important to us,
but not
Virginians.
to wear a union shirt at your place of work. Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to judge one person for doing blackface in their yearbook, you got to judge all of us for doing blackface in their yearbooks.
Right.
And there's a lot of us, okay?
I mean, when I did blackface every day of the school year, it was mostly to prepare for the blackface in the yearbook.
Yeah.
I just had to practice so that I would know which kind of shoe polish to use.
Yeah, well, and look, we weren't rich at our school, okay? We didn't have shoe polish because we're not fancy rich guys with shoes that you can polish. We wore sneakers like regular people.
Yeah, so you had sneaker polish.
So we used Sharpies, okay?
Yes.
Which is, as it turns out, less permanent than shoe polish, according to Ralph Northam. So,
I love that he knows the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned
if you use Sharpies,
he like straight up said like, "Oh yeah, I only put a little bit of shoe polish on my face because I know from experience that like it's really permanent and hard to get off."
Yeah, it's like, oh, cool, dude, cool.
That's awesome, dude. Good job.
Yeah.
So for the next one, we're gonna go, and this is not a human rights abuse, of course.
Right.
What they're doing here, this is totally different. So we're going back to the far off year of 1971.
Oh yeah.
The year of bell bottoms and probably some other stuff too.
Can't think of anything.
Leonard Skinner, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know when bands existed.
Yeah. But it was right before the
Metallica,
great...
I think.
Yeah.
I think they were big in the 70s.
Totally. Yes. That's when Metallica was very active.
Yeah.
As children.
Yeah. Their classic song, Don't Fear the Reaper.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one of theirs.
Yes, actually.
That's a good one. That actually was a 70s band, Blue Oyster Cult, probably.
That's
good song.
Yeah.
But we don't have any Blue Oyster Cult, so we're talking instead about the Iraqi poison grain disaster. And if that sounds good to you, it actually was not. Just so you know. So what happened there was Cargill sold 63,000 tons of grain to Iraq. late into the planting season, which caused farmers to sell grain because it was too late to plant it, and they sold it in their local markets. And much of it, unfortunately, was bought by poor rural Iraqis who would grind up the grain into flour and make bread out of it. So, like, the grains were, like, dyed red, and the bag they were in said, like, warning poison and had, like, a skull and crossbones on it. But, like, that symbol means nothing to Iraqi people. At least not in the 70s.
Not in 1971.
And they can't really read English, so they basically, like, the labeling on the bag didn't do shit. And the red dye on the seeds, I don't know if I said that already. They dyed the seeds red to, like, show you, these are not normal grains.
This is not for you to eat.
That stuff just washed off. So,
so they thought, sure, why not?
If they even recognized the fact that there was poison on the seeds, they thought that they washed it off because they could wash the dye off.
Right.
So, I kind of spoiled the way I structured this, but anyway.
Basically.
So the problem with the grain was that it was intended for agriculture, and so it was coated with mercury to ward off fungus. Yeah, so I found out. I found out in looking into this because that just sent me down a Wikipedia rabbit hole. I was like, why the fuck is there mercury on these seeds? That's nuts.
That's nuts.
So apparently that was common practice from like the turn of the 20th century to like 1970.
Oh wow.
They would use mercury as a fungicide. And yeah, so they would just coat seeds in it and then plant them in the ground where presumably the mercury just went away and nothing bad happened.
Never, yeah.
The law of destruction of matter.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It just goes away.
Yeah. Everyone knows
and never
basic
comes back
science.
and never goes anywhere else.
Right, exactly. No, it actually turns out mercury is bad for you.
I've heard that.
Which
doesn't stop me from drinking a glass a day.
Yeah, we didn't know that prior to 1950 or, the 1900s.
Right. Totally.
The whole, like, Mad Hatter thing.
I was just going to say the Mad Hatter thing. Yeah, there's no way we could have known.
Nobody ever figured out why that was happening, so I'm sure that it was just an innocent mistake.
Right. Yeah, and for those of you listeners who somehow don't know what the Mad Hatter like syndrome is, it's because hat makers back in like the 19th century would use mercury to manipulate the felt and whatever other fabric that the hats were made of at the time.
Yep.
And then because they worked with so much mercury, they would go slowly insane and become unstable and stuff. And so that's where the term Mad Hatter came from, which is why Lewis Carroll put it in the Alice in Wonderland. Yeah. So forth and so on.
There were also mad watchmakers. Yep. Because they used a technique called fire gilding that used like mercury vapor. Yeah. And I think that was even more of a rapid onset than
when it's vapor.
The hats.
It's kind of going into you.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I learned that from S-Town, that podcast.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah.
That cool guy. Story about that cool guy who did a bunch of shit, did fire gilding. The official figure in the death toll here is 459 deaths. But in Middle Eastern culture, or culture in much of the Middle East anyway, definitely in Iraq, people prefer to die at home if they can. So if they like go to the hospital,
right? That's when
and then they're like, "Yeah, you're gonna die, dude." Then they go home,
like, all right,
so they
peace.
can like die with their family, I guess.
Right.
So the doctors there said that the actual death toll is probably about 10 times higher than the official figure, so around 4,000 people.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I don't think I should have written this down. I always find out tons of things that I should have written down when I'm actually doing the show. But I don't think anything really happened to them because of that.
Not surprising. I mean, Iraq is our mortal enemy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where evil comes from.
That's where evil comes from.
Yeah.
It forms a part of the axis of evil.
Yes. Yeah, the two other places where evil comes from, of course, are Iran and Afghanistan? No, North Korea. North Korea. Yeah. Yep. Man, they really said the quiet part loud all through the 2000s, huh?
Man.
Goddamn, dude.
And they're doing it again now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the depressing part.
I think that was probably one of the first things that made me start becoming like a radical, or having radical politics, like the axis of evil shit. Because I remember when the Iraq War was like ramping up, I was like watching the news all the time. That was like I was probably like 2003. I was probably 14, I guess. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
This shit is crazy, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't listening to the radio because like the radio was nuts then. They had the terror alert level like constantly.
Fucking
all day, every day.
Oh, it's just everything all the time. And then you realize that like it didn't fucking matter most of the time.
Yeah. It still blows my mind that they banned Rage Against the Machine from playing on the radio.
Yeah. But also, is it that surprising coming from the GOP?
Well, you know, free speech.
They fucking hate everything.
They are the party of free speech, as we know.
Right.
So I just kind of shoehorn this in randomly. The next line. The one recent thing that happened to them was they hired a guy who stole secrets from them and Dow Agricultural and sold them to China. Idiots. That was in 2011. So some other bad shit is for all our eco heads out there. In 2003, they were accused by Greenpeace of accelerating deforestation of Brazilian rainforest by building and operating a soy processing facility there. Public opinion was tepid at first because they promised lots of jobs at the
that
processing
doesn't sound familiar
facility.
at all.
Yeah. But then when that didn't happen, public pressure mounted against it, resulting in it closing in 2010.
Mm-hmm. But in the 7 years, they destroyed a lot of shit, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah. But, you know, fortunately, they haven't done anything bad since then,
right.
so everything's good now.
Yeah.
So Cargill is currently a major vendor of palm oil, which is mostly produced in Indonesia.
Yep.
And is responsible for major deforestation and mass killing of orangutans and other animals.
Yep.
And just to cement their position as the world's greatest killer of primates, in 2017, an environmental NGO reported that Cargill was selling cocoa grown illegally in protected forests, including national parks in Ivory Coast.
Jesus.
Like its palm oil production, the deforested areas are habitat for chimpanzees, as well as elephants and other animals. Many of the protected forests are now fully converted into cocoa production. So they just demolished the whole forest and had it.
These motherfuckers, like, they don't fucking stop. They just eat everything.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. So one of my mottos that I have is coffee is slave beans and cocoa is also slave beans.
Yeah. Right. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to unionize coffee
tea,
and cocoa.
Drink tea made in factories in China because that's like the wokest beverage.
Drink mercury.
So you don't want to drink wine.
Drink hot mercury
because that's grown by white people.
Right.
You don't want to drink beer because it's also brewed by white people. Yeah, drink pu'er tea because it's made in Chinese factories by salt-to-the-earth working people.
Yes.
And grown by farmers, of course. Or picked from wild trees, which is even better.
Yeah.
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 And the trees are like 1,300 years old, which is pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So the last stuff about Cargill that I have here, just some recent stuff. They made a major upgrade to their Cedar Rapids soybean facility. So I guess they moved out of Brazil and into Iowa. So we've heard a lot about Amazon's HQ2 tax breaks. So Cargill is actually trying to get some major tax breaks for this facility. So they applied for a business financial assistance application for the Iowa Economic Development Authority for tax credits under the state's High Quality Jobs Program. Which, okay, sure. I guess maybe they'll have jobs this time. Didn't work out last time, but this time it will.
Right. This time.
Cargill is asking the city for a local match if it receives the state grant of $429,000, estimated to be worth $367,000 in tax breaks over 10 years. So it sounds small, but it's applied to the increase in property valuation. So the total capital outlay that they're making is $36 million, but the property valuation increase is only $2.1 million. So this tax break would actually be about 15% of their property valuation increase.
Yep.
Plus, they keep the property that increased in value, and then they can sell it later.
Yep, so. Exactly. Yeah, it's because they understand that they can just game the legal side of money, where they're like, oh, if you just write it on the books that we're like all good, then we're good.
Yeah,
and that's it. We're solid, and you're stuck with us until we decide to leave.
Yeah. So Cargill, basically a giant medieval manor.
Basically,
the world's largest medieval manor.
Yep.
It's
fucking disgusting.
Passed down through an aristocratic lineage through divine right, with competing families, just like the Habsburgs and some other royal family.
Yeah, or like Elizabeths. The French and English really for a long time.
Did English kings have last names?
Well, yes, they did. So the first English kings. Well, okay.
Wasn't the thing like Charles was like a title or some shit like that? Wasn't like the first name of the king like a title that they took on, like they were born with a different name, and then when they became king, they're like, oh, I'm Charles now. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think. Well, that was more of like a Chinese or Japanese thing.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember if the English did that. I don't think so. But they had. So I mean, if you go, okay, so like a unified England was actually under Norman rule first, as I recall. Before that, it was like Mercia.
Who was Norman?
And East Essex and stuff like that. Huh?
Who's Norman?
Who's Norman?
Yeah.
All of the kings since then.
But like, who is he?
It's like, yeah, I get it. But yeah, so the first Norman kings for like a few generations were the Plantagenets. So that was William the Conqueror and his like immediate descendants and so forth. And they were just a bunch of fucking like Frenchified Vikings, and like that's a whole other story that like really actually contributes to our understanding.
Oh, we are going to pillage you.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, we are the tallest French that have ever existed, and we will become English, but not really.
We are going to Valhalla.
Exactly. Which is an island in the north. Yeah. So.
Look at our pantheon of gods, Odin and Thor.
Exactly.
Thor.
Yeah, and so they were, a whole thing. But
I'm gonna be laughing about that all night.
Yes,
it is Loki.
Because we are going to low-key brutalize your society. Yeah. But yeah, so it was the Plantagenets, and then it was what was the fucking name after that? It was the Plantagenets, and I think it went straight to Tudor after that. So they
the Tudors.
The Tudors,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, okay.
And then after the Tudors, it was
they like to toot a lot.
Right.
Big fart knockers.
Exactly, big old flappers. Yeah. And then it went to, I think after the Tudors, Tudors, then Stuarts, of course, because it was the Scottish sort of married in house, and then the Stuarts also farted it out under the Civil War and all that, and then they tried to bring back that shit, and it kind of went nowhere, and so then.
And then it was the Cargills and the Macmillans.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically, and then that's the long and short of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of English monarchy, it's a perfect segue into the next section.
Oh, yeah.
About Code Geass. So, I'll do like a brief plot summary and just say a couple things about it. So, the reason I was watching it is because it was recently added to Hulu. So, they have both the subbed and the dubbed version. So, I just threw the dubbed version on there while I was doing other stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I made it through season 1. And then I tried to watch a few episodes, like a select few episodes of season 2, but I only made it through 1 and then had to do some work shit.
Work.
Yeah. Yeah, basically this morning I had a meeting about this new thing that I was supposed to work on. They estimated it like 5 days, and I made it like a third of the way through the work in like an hour. So I was like, well, I'm just going to fuck off for a couple hours and do whatever.
Right.
And then, so I watched like that. I watched 1 or 2 episodes. I watched the last episode of the first season and then one of the episodes from the second season.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, my boss is leaving at 3 o'clock for almost a month, so I should probably check my messages.
Right.
She was like, she had messaged me like 3 minutes before that and was like, there's all these problems, you gotta fix it. I'm like, fuck.
Shit.
So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so So the basic summary of Code Geass, if you have not seen it, is like the background of the series is the American Revolution. Either I don't know if it never happened or if it just failed. I don't know if they made that clear because, like I said, I was only half paying attention.
Right.
And so the British basically went to conquer the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And
like you do.
Yeah. And they instituted what's called in the series the area system, which is that's kind of a lame name. But
okay.
Basically they stripped every country of its national or ethnic identity and turned them into areas of the world.
Okay.
And so Japan, which is of course the location of the series,
right,
is Area 11. And
okay.
so like they just called Japanese people 11s.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Okay.
And so the series is about basically a Japanese revolution, which is kind of cool.
Let's hear more about that in the real world.
Yeah, yeah. So the two main characters. There's a bunch of characters, but the two main ones I would say are Suzaku and Lelouch. Mm-hmm. Lelouch is the main character. Suzaku's secondary main character, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically, at least at the beginning, have two competing ideologies. So Lelouch is basically a tanky.
Okay.
And Suzaku is a deontologist worm who wants to change things from the inside. So he's basically a liberal.
God.
Yeah. Lelouch wants to basically use this power that he got. He got this power called Geass.
Okay.
Where
it's an extreme power.
Yes.
It must be handled.
It's the power to command anyone. So he's using the power of his Geass.
I can understand that, yeah.
Force people to bend to his will.
To his will.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're all his bottoms or his tops, I guess.
I don't know. Bottoms.
I'm reaching the limit of my knowledge on of that stuff.
Homosexual logistics.
Yes.
Well, it's all a lot of fun. So.
Well, when you call it homosexual, it sounds kind of religious.
Homosexual.
Let's call it queer. Queer logistics.
Homosexual.
So anyway, So Suzaku joins the Royal Guards, and he's going to change it from the inside.
Right. By becoming part of the
thing
machine.
That always works really well. Join the most evil part of the most evil organization in the world, and then solely by yourself, you will change it from the inside.
Right.
Because of your talent and skill.
Right.
So that's basically what he tries to do.
Ice infiltrating resistance. # resistance fighter.
I'll give you 3 guesses if it works. And since there's 3, you will definitely get it right because there's only 2 possibilities. All right, spoilers, it doesn't work. Lelouch's way works. So both of them have some problems with society. Suzaku's got some good grievances. He says, disease, racism, living in a never-ending cycle of hate.
Yep.
Lelouch says starvation, filth and decay, kind of fascist there. And constant war and terrorism. War, that's bad. Terrorism, kind of good, actually, usually.
Depends on your angle,
yeah. I don't know.
Filth is fine, but starvation's bad.
Yeah. Decay is okay, I guess. Everything needs to decay eventually,
right? As long as it's not like your
flesh that you're
moldy
using.
Yeah, right. Moldy food and you're just your body's rotting and your house is falling down.
I need that.
Right. Hey, wait a minute. This was working just yesterday. Yeah.
So the aristocracy in the country is really openly racist. So Suzaku's actually Japanese. If you couldn't tell by his name. And he's in the the Knights or whatever fuck Knights. The Knights.
Right. The military aristocracy. Of some kind or another.
Yeah, and so Lelouch is doing some tanky shit, and Suzaku basically gets blocked. They checkmate him in the battle.
Right.
They're if you move forward anymore, we're gonna kill your ass or whatever. and all of Suzaku's coworkers, whatever you call it, they're like, yeah, oh, you didn't chase after them because you're an 11,
right?
So they're like insinuating like dual loyalty there. Pretty anti-Semitic if you ask me. But
yeah, it's a rough one.
Because as we established, the Japanese are the original tribe of Israel.
Yeah, that's right.
That's official neighbor science canon. So I mean, both of them are trying to bring about utopia, but they're obviously going about it in one way which works and one way which doesn't. Yeah. Okay. So Britannia, Britannia is what they call Britain. I don't know why they had to change the name, but it's called Britannia. And it's basically led by a heavy-handed social Darwinist emperor. So he literally says all men are not created equal.
Nice.
Like, all men are not created equal. Like, damn, beaten with facts and logic, dude.
Right.
Fuck. I'm owned. But I think that's kind of ironic because the people who he's subtweeting owned people that they considered subhuman, so they were kind of like lying when they said all men are created equal.
Right.
And he also makes the classic white person / capitalist argument that inequality is good because it forces people to compete, which is good for progress.
Right.
So
it's like the dog that survives the dog fight is the best dog.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh God.
Yeah, and that makes owning a dog better.
Right.
Because now your dog is more powerful.
Exactly. Yeah, and the dogs
Which
that
is
come
what
from
we
that
all
dog
want.
will obviously be better. Yeah.
So in the series, the global balance of power is governed as it is in reality by control of important resources, including high-temperature superconductors necessary for mech suits.
Oh, fun.
The most of the supply of that is in Japan. So they have a lot of power that they're not wielding.
Right.
And as far as I can tell, never wield in the series because everything is done through combat. But okay. Let's see. I just have a bunch of quotes here from random shit. Oh yeah. So I thought this was great. Lelouch is talking about his plans, and so he says, "I hate the Britannians, but I don't condone terrorism. That is the view of most 11s." So he's saying like most Japanese people believe like, oh well, yeah. I mean our overlords who are doing atrocities to us every day, they're bad. But we shouldn't do anything effective against them. And I mean that's what most people in reality believe too. So pretty accurate, I guess.
Yep.
But on the other hand, Lelouch also says that Area 11 is in some ways better than Japan. That 11s can get full citizenship, although since they're called honorary Britannians and are looked down upon by natural Britannians, it seems to me like not really. But I think he was just trying to be nuanced. Which is really important. This is a funny quote from Suzaku, who reminders the liberal guy who's changing things from the inside. He says, "I prefer the logic of systems to individualist emotions," which I think is ironic because you're trying to change an evil empire from the inside and think ends don't justify means. So
short-sighted.
Let's see what else. So Suzaku keeps talking about how Lelouch is playing with people's lives because his plans actually involve some stakes, so people end up dying. So playing with people's lives and doing senseless violence, even though Suzaku is a royal guard of an evil emperor that kills people all the time. So yeah, later on, Lelouch successfully gets public favor on his side after a major atrocity by the Britannians. He then declares Area 11 an independent nation, which he says is broad enough to accept all peoples, histories, and ideologies. But he calls it the United States of Japan.
Fantastic.
So that's about where I reached in season 1. And the rest of the plot is basically Lelouch establishes a legitimate claim to the throne.
Nice.
And then I think he kills the Emperor Charles, and so he ascends to Emperor. And as Emperor, he abolishes the colonial suzerain nation system, the area system. I forgot to mention, this whole time that he's been doing all these actions, he created a character named Zero. So he's like a masked guy with like a cool cape.
Okay, right.
Like a badass cape and stuff. And the mask is cool
Gotta
too.
have the cape.
Did I even explain what Geass was?
No.
Oh yeah, so the Geass thing, he gets this power that allows him to like force anyone to obey his orders.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah. So at first he like has to make eye contact with them, and it only works once. But then the power
That's
develops.
the scariest part, really.
Yeah.
When you're using Geass.
Yes.
Yeah.
When they turn around.
Yep.
I don't like that. But later on, the power becomes more powerful, and he's able to kind of do it like remotely and multiple times. Mm-hmm. Like at one point, he actually like Suzaku joins his side, and Suzaku's in this like tough fight, and so he's like, Suzaku, I command you to live. And Suzaku becomes like way more badass at fighting because of that. He's like, well, I got to follow his orders.
Oh, in that case,
got to be better at fighting now.
Right, that's the real magic.
So later, like when he ascends to Emperor, Zero is like still a distinct character in most people's minds. They haven't figured out that Zero and Lelouch are the same person. So they just think this like asshole guy ascended to the throne of Emperor and like randomly was like, oh, the area system sucks. Right. So Suzaku starts dressing up as Zero, which is funny because his official title in Lelouch's regime is the Knight of Zero. Pretty heavy-handed there. Again, kind of ham-fisted.
No possible association between the two.
Yeah, and I think basically, I mean, spoilers if you haven't watched the series is from like 2005.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched it by now, I don't feel too bad for spoiling it. But like, basically, what happens is like. He gets Zero to like kill Lelouch, but it's like planned. So they're like, "Yeah, we overthrew the Emperor, so fuck you" or whatever. And I think
we
that's how it
did
ends.
it.
Yeah, I tried to watch the last episode, but that was when all that work shit happened.
Yeah.
The bad shit about it, there's like lots of totally contrived ass shots. I hate this part of it.
Quote unquote fan service.
Yeah, I was posting them in the group DM.
It's fucking tiresome.
Anime anarchists.
Yeah.
Like there's one where like there's this girl in a mech suit, and you know normally when you're in a mech suit, you're in a really tight cockpit,
right?
Very small.
Yep.
But they somehow found it in them to put the camera angle behind the pilot.
Jesus Christ.
For no reason at all. It's not like they were like showing something out of the front window or anything like that, or like on the screen. It was just like, oh yeah, the mech pilot is talking. We need to show her tight, fat ass,
right,
and pussy and everything. So,
yep.
And another thing is like there's this character Nina who's like a classic Meganico character, like glasses girl character.
Right.
And for some reason she like was jacking off to one of the princesses.
Oh, cool.
They showed that for no reason during this like it's like a montage scene. There's just like all this stuff happening. She's just like silently flicking her bean and
Jesus Christ
coming on screen.
That's just like
pretty sure she's supposed to be a high schooler as well. So
oh wow,
that's very cool.
Nice, cool.
Also, the thing that annoyed me more than anything was when Lelouch uses his Geass power. They show this animation of it like going into their brain and changing their brain chemistry or whatever every single time.
So they're just
every single time.
They're just like buying minutes on the episode.
Yeah, it's never just like, okay, you guys get what Geass does now.
Right.
So
yeah,
he'll just say the thing and then they do the thing. It's like every single time. It's like, pew! Like, all right, guys.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well.
Yep. So as promised, we have a guest for this episode, Morton Mooten Smoot, who is our new anime correspondent, and he's just going to give us a brief review of the show. So I'm going to hand the mic to Morton.
Hi, my name's Morton. I watch Code Geass. I've watched it like 3 or 4 times now. It's one of my top 60 shows, I would say. I I think I would give this show a 5 out of 10. One thing that really bugs me about the show is they spend too much time being badass and doing cool robot fights, and not enough time on detailing battle tactics. There's only like one episode where they really get into the battle tactics, and that's probably one of the best ones. Lelouch causes a landslide, and he basically drew all the enemy forces into following him up one side of the mountain, and then he got out of the way, and the other Black Knights, they triggered a landslide, so they eliminated about 80% of the forces on the enemy side. So that one was good. But the rest of it, they hardly talk about battle tactics at all. And that's really what I watch anime for, to get up on my battle skills. So yeah, 5 out of 10, I would say. That's all I really have to say about it.
Thanks, Morton. That was very informative.
Pretty dry.
I also noticed the lack of battle tactics in the episodes. I do think there was one episode where they had more battle tactics other than the landslide one, but wasn't not nearly as much as like Gundam 8th MS Team or anything like that. So yeah, I think I have to agree with your assessment. I would say a 7 out of 10 because I do like cool robot fights. I'm pretty into that. Although I do maintain my opinion that the mecha anime genre peaked with Gundam 0080, and it's all been downhill from there. Brief blip of goodness with Gurren Lagann, but that's more like a super robo fight and not like a realistic mech fight.
Right.
I also noticed that since the technology in this timeline, which is I think at the same exact year is when it came out, the technology there is far more advanced than it is today, so they're like kind of low-key shitting on America,
right? Like saying
like, oh yeah, if you guys hadn't have existed, everything would be better.
Even if it was a like racist hellscape that the British put on us.
Good thing we avoided a racist hellscape
right
by having America.
Yeah,
so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, even though you haven't watched it, I assume.
I mean, I'm interested to watch it now just to see. I like the concept,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like all history.
I can like sit through the fucking dumb bits because we've all seen anime and it's like the fan service is like, oh Jesus Christ, but then you're like, okay, in like 30 seconds, maybe a minute, it'll be over.
Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10.
Maybe 10. right. Maybe the whole episode, who knows?
Yeah.
But you get through it.
Yeah. And, damn, I had one other thing I was going to say. Oh, yeah, like, one thing I was thinking about the other day is, like, when someone who doesn't watch anime is, like, looking at whatever you're watching, they always make jokes about it, but it's, like, the jokes that you thought of in, like, 1998 when you started watching anime, right? It's like, oh wow, this theme song sounds so funny. It's like, wow, the music is so weird. It's like, yes, I've watched like 100 anime and they all have the same theme song.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So you're not making an original observation.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so I guess that's all we have.
Yeah.
So just covering 2 monarchies today.
Yep.
Cargill and Britannia.
Right.
If you enjoyed that, listen to our other episodes. Our website is neighborsciencepodcast.com. We are on iTunes, Spotify, and all the other podcast apps.
Yep.
Oh, I haven't told anyone in a long time to try and give us a 5-star review on iTunes.
Oh, yeah, go for that.
Although I also haven't checked in a while. So I think last time there was like 2 or 3. So not bad for a small organization like us. Our Twitter account is at NeighborSciPod. All our other accounts are Neighbor Science. We have a Patreon. I really need to put up the bonus audio on there. I haven't done it in probably like a month and a half.
Yeah.
But I don't have that much.
All of our background chatter and
we haven't had many outtakes that are like worth.
Yeah, I noticed.
I don't want to just put like,
oh
yeah, here's us like being stupid and like saying the wrong thing.
Right. Like we never, like we're always pretty pressed for time, so it's not like we're like, getting high right before the episode and like hanging out. It's like, oh, are you gonna be here at such and such a time, like so we can record, and then like I gotta go to bed after that, and you gotta drive home, and yeah.
I also just know that I can't do that and like talk.
Yeah, same.
For
I can't focus.
And also, I don't do drugs at all. If any
I actually
government agents or employers are listening, I don't do drugs. So don't even ask. I also haven't really been doing the games or the Twitch stream. I haven't really had much time for that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to separate online from the rest of my life a little bit. So like I limit online to like a certain period. I only go on my phone really.
Yep.
And then like I try to keep the rest of like all the other like entertainment shit on my computer.
Yeah.
Like my desktop computer, which is like in the basement. So like I'm not hanging out in the basement all night when I'm done with work. After I've been sitting there all fucking day.
Yeah.
For 9 hours.
Yeah.
In the like it's like 45 degrees down there, so like extra incentive not to be down there. So I just haven't like wanted to do a stream.
Yeah.
Been watching Real Housewives of New Jersey with my girlfriend. They had a great reunion show last night. It was so fucking good. So good. Teresa was like accusing this other woman, like one of the other women that's on there. I don't know all the names yet. So,
Right.
Teresa's like one of the original cast members.
Oh, okay.
And she was doing some like event like 10 years ago, and the other woman that's on the show now was like there. So Teresa was like, "You are stalking me because you showed up at my event." She's like, "That was 10 years ago."
Oh my God.
And now I'm on the show. I
Yeah.
can't be stalking you.
Right.
And and
That's
she also
hilarious.
claimed that she did in fact write her book that she had ghostwritten. And even though the rest of everything that she said when she was speaking that time like was completely incoherent, it's like, yeah, you definitely wrote a book for sure.
Yeah. Regular Hunter S. Thompson over here.
And my favorite part was the host guy was like, yeah, so you said that her lips looked like a monkey's ass. And Margaret was like, yeah, no, a monkey's asshole. Monkey's asshole. Because, monkeys, when they bend over, their asshole's all puffy, and that's what it looked like. It's so good. So, yeah, basically the point of that is I haven't been Twitch streaming. But my Twitch channel is Twitch TV/DrunkyDLuffy. Chris's book, Dream of the White Stag.
Yep.
Check that out.
Yep.
And I think that's all the plugs we have.
Yep.
I'm at Handle of Rye. Chris is at Solidarity_Goth.
Yep.
Yeah. So tune in next time for whatever we're talking about. Bye.
Bye.